Hi everybody, this is Dan Stolberger. Welcome to this week's KFIR Middle East update, the week of August 27th. Sobering news. We begin with the information that today, currently, there's been over 12 casualties of U.S. soldiers, Marines killed in Afghanistan at the airport. Over 15 wounded. Details still forthcoming. As the world reacts to all of this, we can only just tread water to wonder what will happen next. I waited as long as I could because I wanted to hear what Biden had to say, but this keeps getting pushed back, so I thought I'd move ahead with this week's update. Once again, as a reminder, be sure to get the PDF PowerPoint that accompanies this. You can get that at our website at holygroundexploration.com, or simply click the link on the YouTube channel. Obviously, that prior news that I just shared is monumental, and other things that we'll talk about seem to be on the minor side of things. But as we approach the Middle East, wonder what's going to take place, what's going to happen. A world power like the United States, obviously, withdrawing is going to leave major questions. If we're withdrawing from Afghanistan, will we withdraw from other friends and allies? This is an issue that Israel is facing today. Naftali Bennett's meeting with Biden obviously has been postponed. I'm not sure when it will be rescheduled. Some of the things here we'll have to deal with that as well. So, some of this news may be kind of old news in terms of what has transpired, but despite their leaders' promise that they would safeguard women's rights, we're talking about the Taliban now. Taliban fighters killed a woman in Afghanistan last week for not wearing a head covering in public. I think as I just watched the report from the Pentagon, to see the amount of trust and information for the safety of Americans that we're putting into the hands of the Taliban is mind-boggling. And again, despite what we just said here, this new government, it's rhetoric. They want to be inclusive and they want to be concerned about women's rights. Are you kidding me? And we just read of this death because someone was not wearing a head covering. This leads to the question of how can anyone take the Biden administration seriously when they're pretending that the Taliban is a normal government that will institute normal laws on Afghanistan. The Taliban laughs in the face of women's rights and human rights. They are terrorists. They don't care what the world thinks. Lying comes natural to them. Here's a frightening statistic. In America's leaving, the Taliban has seized weaponry, US-made weaponry, and it's unclear exactly how much, but to give estimates at this time, you're looking at something like 600,000 machine-type guns, 75,000 armed vehicles, 200 planes, all left behind. Some of these, the transports taking off from the airport, one of the concerns is how many surface-to-air rockets have we left behind that are in Taliban hands, or ISIS or Al-Qaeda, put them all together as far as I'm concerned. And will the next attempt not just be a suicide bombing that might take out 15, 20, and those were just American soldiers, The casualties have yet to be reported, but my guess it's in the hundreds. Or do you take out an airplane that's leaving the airport where you have what, 450, 500 people on it? This is all we're just in the midst of all of this right now. Well, let's move towards, it's not like more of a pleasant, it's not like moving on to good news. Reports out now about Iran, and in regards to their presence along Israel's northern borders, a think tank, a Turkish think tank, just recently released the following information, that the military installations on that Golan, Syria, Lebanon border has grown from 40, it's doubled, it's more than doubled. It's now 88 military installations that are manned by the Iranians that are now on these borders. That's over the past 2 years, it's grown with Iranian militias having a presence on the border of Israel. Well, as I mentioned, the Bennet Biden confab has been postponed, but in meetings with the Prime Minister, U.S. officials are reaffirming their unshakable commitment to Israel's security. How's that make you feel, Bibi and Naftali? How's that make you feel that America is telling you that we have an unshakable commitment to your security as we look at what's taking place in Afghanistan? Obviously, the issue is going to be Iran. And there's some non-negotiables. I read this article the Palestinian Media Watch put out. But when I say that, before I get to this, just those non-negotiables are, let's face it, Bennet is there to talk about Israel's current position in regards to the two-state solution, kind of deflect that. I've been hearing that it'll never happen on Bennett's watch. But also, obviously, the thing that's looming in the background is the nuclear accord deal. Will Biden sign that? Will he take a diplomacy aspect? Or with all that's going on, can he afford to do that? And what will happen next with Iran? Benny Gantz, the head of the defense, estimates that Iran is around the 2-month mark until they will have what they need to acquire a nuclear weapon. So that's looming whenever these negotiations or this confab begins. But some non-negotiables as far as Bennett's concerned when he meets with Biden. Fundamental points regarding this, the push. There will be a push for a two-state solution. And the 4 major subjects that the Palestinian Media Watch has raised has said, number 1, as non-negotiables, keep in mind that there are no Palestinian leaders to talk to. Abbas is in the 17th year of his 4-year term. 86 years old and poor health. Who's next? Who's going to replace him? Right now, hands down, it's going to be somebody from the Hamas variety, a terrorist group, or a prisoner. We'll talk about that in a moment. So there's no leadership to negotiate with. Number 2, the pay for slay must end. Did you know that and Israel's demanding that sporting events must no longer be named after mass murderers, and they've named over 75 schools after terrorists or Nazi collaborators, and they honor martyrs and martyrdom. This all has to change. This is sandwiched together with a fundamental change in education. You know, what you teach your children will bear fruit. And the textbooks of the Palestinians is filled with anti-Semitic remarks. Imagine, like I said, a sporting event that's honoring, named after a person that's responsible for blowing up a coffee shop and killing 15 Jews. And that's the name of the tournament. His name. I won't even mention those names. And then finally, they have to put the complete kibosh on this concept of the right of return. Those numbers are just ridiculous. And they have to realize that Israel will not commit national suicide by letting over 500 million so-called refugees back into Israel. 5 million. Tragically, there was a soldier, an IDF soldier, that was shot. 21-year-old Beryl Hadera Shimoli from Bir Yaakov. You can see the pictures in the PDF PowerPoint. Palestinian in Gaza has a gun and he sticks it through that opening and just so happens to, at point blank range, shoot this soldier in the head. He's hanging in there at this point in time. Just the riots now at the border. You know, we've got these incendiary devices being let over on balloons, fires starting, and just the rage that's there. We've been doing these Middle East updates for 7 years now, and some of these themes continue to be the same over and over again. How long? Regarding Damascus, Israel struck couple sites outside of Damascus. They would always refer to them as weapon depots, Iranian presence. Remember, Russia said, no more, you cannot strike airstrikes into the Damascus area. This is the first time that Israel's done that since Russia has said don't. And so we're going to have to wait and see what transpires in regards to that. There's an article here on Israeli views of Biden. Again, the enemies of the United States, Pakistan, China, Russia, Iran, Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, they all want to see the United States humiliated and defeated, and they want to eliminate the United States from the region. The mindset of the Arabs, the Islamic jihadists, is that they respect power, and when they smell weakness and that vacuum that it creates, they will fill it. Part of the fear that we have with what's taken place in Afghanistan and our retreat, it will open the door once again to the 9/11 type of terrorism that we've experienced in the past. And so from the Israeli standpoint, it's like, if you do this with your allies there, how can we have any faith in an unshakable alliance with you? Anti-Semitism on Tik Tok. It's a little video, sort of Instagram video sort of stuff. And it's more than half of the TikTok users are in the US are under 30. But young minds are easier to influence, and it's not surprising that anti-Semitism has major impact in threads through TikTok. One video, especially with Holocaust denial, a survey in 2020 indicated that 63% of millennials in Generation Z did not know that 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. 10% of those never recalled hearing the word Holocaust. There was a TikTok that was had over 25,000 views, that was called a confused Travolta, which means it was showing John Travolta's character in Pulp Fiction walking around and looking confused with the caption, "Me in heaven, looking for the 6 million." A reference once again of a Holocaust denier. What's next for the PA? You can read that on your own. And like I said, I'm still waiting to hear the Biden report, his response to all of this, but I wanted to get this update out to you in a timely fashion. And so with that, that's this week's update from the Middle East, our focus on the Middle East update. If ever there was a time to call the people of God together to prayer, I think it's now. So pray for, as we know, the scriptures will tell us, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, but pray for Afghan as well. God bless.